Another large storm is coming to the United States over the next few days, and this will continue to cause problems, including the risk of severe weather, which includes damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado threat. Additionally, heavy rainfall could lead to localized flooding across the southern plains and the southeast. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days, and we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And you'll notice right off the bat, we got a big storm system that is currently sitting in the central plains. This is one of two different low pressure systems that are impacting the United States. Our other one is located back over in the northeast, where we actually saw a couple of tornadoes yesterday in eastern Pennsylvania, in addition to scattered damaging winds and hail across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. This storm system, though, is slowly but surely moving out of the United States and will really be out of here no later than tomorrow as it moves throughout New England. Now, on the other hand, we got a big storm system that is sitting across the southeast and as well as in the deep south, and unfortunately, with how this low pressure system is oriented and how slowly it's moving, this will continue to penetrate a ton of rain in addition to more severe weather over the next few days across the southern plains in addition to the southeast. So over the next few days, a large storm system will continue to impact the United States, and as we go into Thursday and Friday, our low pressure system that is centered over the central plains will slowly move to the east into the Ohio Valley. And what's interesting is that we are actually going to get another piece of energy that comes out of Canada that is going to kind of force this system back to the Gulf as we go into late Thursday and Friday. And you'll see that in real time as we go into Friday and Saturday. Notice how a brand new low pressure system will essentially form back over in the southern plains in the southeast. And this is going to continue to lead to an elevated amount of moisture coming out of the Gulf and moving into the southeast, in addition to the Ohio Valley, where additional severe weather and flooding rainfall will be a possibility as we go into the later half of the work week into the weekend. And then eventually by the late weekend and into early next week, that low pressure system will begin to weaken as it moves into the Ohio Valley. And then by Tuesday and Wednesday is when we're gonna have to watch for yet again another big storm system to form back over along the west coast of the United States. And this could end up being our next big severe weather maker in the United States. At this time, it's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen with this storm system, but if we are to see any sort of level of severe weather, this would be the main region to watch for by the middle and end of next week. But as I've mentioned before, it is still about 7 to 8 days out, so things could definitely change, but something to keep an eye on if you're back over in the Great Plains, because at this point, that is really going to be our next big storm system. And I honestly think the end of May is likely going to be pretty active. We're going to have a kind of a quiet stretch, at least, of significant severe weather events, I think, between now all the way through the early portion of next week, but I think it really takes off by the middle and end of May. So over the next few days, the weather is going to look a little bit like this. We'll continue to watch for some severe weather today back along the Gulf Coast, in addition to a little cold core setup back over in Oklahoma, Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, and southeast Kansas, where there will be a chance for hail, wind, and maybe an isolated tornado. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. By the time we go into Thursday, more scattered severe weather is going to be possible across the Ohio Valley, back into the southeast, and also into the southern plains, where more damaging winds and hail are a possibility, and perhaps a low tornado risk. But by Friday and Saturday is when I think things start to get a little bit more interesting out of the storm system. As it comes together again, I think late Friday into Saturday, we are going to see a brand new low pressure system form, which should bring not just the potential for isolated severe weather, but also the threat for localized flooding. So be ready for that as we go into the weekend, and then by the later half of the weekend into early next week, this low pressure system will meander to the north into parts of the Ohio Valley and also along the East Coast, where much needed rainfall is going to be coming for many areas, including Florida, which Florida is in one of the worst droughts that we've seen in about 8 years. So definitely some good improvement here with the rainfall that we'll be seeing over the next 7 days or so. And then by the middle and end of next week, we are expecting that storm system to slowly move into the northeast. This thing could literally be here, by the way, for over a week, which is really crazy to think about. But by the middle and end of next week, that is when a significant storm system is possible across the Great Plains, where this could bring a significant threat of severe weather. But again, it is way too early to tell exactly what's going to happen there. As I've said before, I do think the middle and end of May will be very active, but at least for the next 7 days, it's going to be a bit quieter since this little low pressure system is just so slowly moving across the United States, with a ridge also built across the Rockies. So over the next 7 days, we are expecting a boatload of rainfall, especially across the southeast. Many areas are expecting to pick up between 4 to 8 inches of rainfall. If you are in the yellow or orange, it is fairly likely that you will at least get 4 inches of rainfall from southern Louisiana back into southern South Carolina and much of Florida, which once again, Florida desperately needs the rain with how much of a drought we have right now. Otherwise, the Midwest, we're looking dry if you're back over in the central or southern plains. plains. Not really a whole lot in the forecast aside from what's happening today into early tomorrow, and then back over in the northeast, a little bit of rainfall coming there. But again, this is looking to be a very quiet weather pattern unless you're back over in the southern plains, the southeast, or even back up into New England. Things are expected to stay relatively quiet in most of the Great Plains, at least until the middle of next week. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days. We'll begin with today, which is a relatively small area. We do have a marginal threat of severe weather that stretches from Oklahoma and Kansas back to the Gulf Coast, and also a small little slight risk of severe weather from about San Antonio, Texas, back into Houston, where the main concern for today will actually end up being large hail. That includes most of Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and also back through the Gulf Coast, but there is a low chance of an isolated tornado, and this will mainly fall during the late morning and early afternoon hours, so definitely make sure that you're staying weather aware if you are right along the Gulf Coast near New Orleans. As we go into Thursday, the threat of severe weather will shift further to the south and east, where a large marginal threat of severe weather is in place. Don't be too scared though by the size of this. I don't really think we're going to be seeing much more than just isolated quarter to $half sized hail and maybe 60 to 65 mile per hour downburst damaging winds. There's a very low chance of a tornado, I think, maybe back over in this region, but it's a very low chance. Wouldn't really be too concerned about it. Just make sure that you're staying weather aware. Again, here's your wind outline, your hail outline, basically the same thing as of right now. As of now, the Storm Prediction Center has no tornado risk outlined for Thursday. So here's the timing for the rest of today. A line of thunderstorms is currently ongoing right along the Gulf Coast, just south of Houston, all the way back into southern Mississippi and Alabama. This will continue as we go into the late morning with an isolated tornado threat mainly located just south and east of New Orleans. Eventually, by around lunchtime, the majority of this line is moving offshore, but it will continue to clip the Gulf Coast through Mobile, Alabama, and also back into Florida. So if you're going to the beach today, definitely a good idea to be staying weather aware. There could definitely be some lightning with this line of storms, even though it'll be mostly offshore. And then eventually by 4 to 5 o'clock, a few marginal hail and wind events will be possible back around our low pressure system in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. I don't really think we're going to see much of a tornado risk out of this, but there's a very, very, very low chance that an isolated tornado happens if a storm is able to mature. And then a more conditional risk for an isolated hail or wind event will exist back over in South Texas as we go into the late afternoon and early evening hours. There will be plenty of instability in place. It's just going to be a matter of if storms fire, which with all the storms that we're seeing this morning, that could limit if any storms actually fire off tonight. And then by tomorrow, more big hailstorms are possible, but most of those will be staying in far southern Texas, with more isolated large hail and damaging winds being a possibility. And then as we go further to the east, as we go throughout the rest of the day today, some scattered showers and storms will continue, but severe weather not expected as of now for Tennessee and Kentucky. And then as we go into tomorrow afternoon, that low pressure system moves to the east with more scattered damaging winds and hail possible across Kentucky, Tennessee, and also back through the Dixie Alley. I would not rule out an isolated tornado threat out of one of these storms, but I think generally speaking, hail and wind will be the main concern. Very localized flooding is also a possibility here in the Tennessee Valley before all these storms start to weaken after sunset Thursday. And then over the next couple of weeks, we are expecting below average temperatures to continue for the remainder of this week, anywhere from the northeast back into the southern plains. That'll change though by the early to mid portion of next week. As that low pressure system slowly moves to the east, the colder area of weather is going to get a lot smaller, which will allow for almost a heat wave to build, especially in the northern plains and the upper Midwest by the early to mid portion of next week. But by the end of next week is when things could get really warm, especially if we don't have another big storm system until Thursday or Friday of next week. We could have a full-blown heat wave happening from areas like Texas and Missouri all the way back into Minnesota and Wisconsin, where record-breaking high temperatures may become a possibility around May 15th. And then after about May 15th, things will become a lot more uncertain, but we actually could get some more cold air back over in the northern plains and maybe a more balanced weather pattern as we go into the middle and end of May, which is a little bit more typical for the month of May. Honestly, right now, the weather almost feels like June right now for the United States. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of May pans out. I do think our next big severe weather event, though, will likely end up being sometime during the middle or end of next week. If that does change, we'll obviously have a video talking all about that, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. There is a chance, by the way, that we don't have a video every single day again, because the weather does look to be at least slightly quieter. We'll at least aim, though, for videos every other day until our next big severe weather event, so stay tuned, and we'll see you guys all again in the next video.